NDP MP Charlie Angus, easily the biggest loudmouth in the entire House of Commons, stood up and started to complain that the Conservatives were not being nice to him. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. Ever since Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, introduced a motion based completely and totally on the words and utterances of the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, the NDP have been losing their minds. They know how bad it looks. And it started with them marching up the House of Commons, the length of the House, and confronting a couple of Conservatives sitting at their desk and trying to be physically intimidating. Then it graduated to them trying to block Conservatives from getting into their office when they were at a Hamas supporter protest on Parliament Hill, And of course, the Conservatives said something about that, and now the NDP spent all their time whining and complaining that they should be allowed to do that no matter what, and even though they were standing there, it wasn't exactly what it looked like, and all this kind of stuff. And of course, now they are trying desperately to deflect, so they stood up and they said, when the Conservatives are talking, we're way down here and they're interrupting us. This is the NDP who scream their faces off constantly. You can't even open your mouth as a Conservative in the House without having one of the NDP hurling insults at you. I mean, I get that you might want to, get into an argument with the Conservative Party, but you got to do it with more than just that stuff you learned in grade 3. I mean, you need some... you need to be a little bit more mentally mature than just name calling. Of course, Charlie Angus stood up on this point of order and started to say that the Conservatives are the toxic one, and he's only the way that he is because they are. Like somehow this two wrongs don't make a right doesn't occur to him. This is the same guy who has been hurling insults. He will never stop. That's all he says. I never hear him say anything to contribute to the dialogue or the discourse. All I ever hear him do is try to make jabs and jibs at Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. I guess that's why he's losing such control. And I know he says, I'm not running again. But we all know that the reason that he's not running again is because he just couldn't simply face the embarrassment of losing his seat.
I think, Speaker, the issue speaks to our lack of faith that every member should be treated fairly, but they're not. And we have learned very quickly that if the Conservatives create enough chaos, the Speaker bends to that. So when the New Democrats raise points, they're shut down. On points of order, we're told to sit down. In fact, one of the only times I remember the Speaker standing up on a point was when my colleague was wearing a brooch. And yet we've seen outrageous insults and attacks, and that's considered okay. So the message that the precedent, and everything's based on precedent, if the Speaker bends to toxicity, then we will fight back because we have the smallest numbers, the fewest questions. And if the Speaker doesn't allow a proper fairness and continues to bend to the Conservatives in their toxic behavior, then there will be pushback, and it undermines this House.
Charlie needs to learn a little bit before he opens his mouth about these kinds of subjects. Obviously, the chair is nowhere near friendly to the Conservative Party. They have had to call him out like 20 times. The reason that Charlie is whining is because he knows that they're losing ground everywhere. That's why you have the fewest questions, because you are nobody wants to vote for you. You have to lie about what you're doing and about your motivations to get anybody in Winnipeg to barely squeak you through, which I'm sure now many of them that are cast a vote for you are regretting. What I dislike is him trying to say that his behavior is based on the way that the Conservatives behave. I mean, what kind of logic is that, right? It's not my fault that you do whatever it is you do. It's not their fault that you do whatever it is that you do. I have seen lots of clips of Charlie Angus, and he is nothing if not caustic and whatever they want to call it, toxic, which is not a word that I agree with necessarily. I mean, because somebody doesn't like the way that you respond does not give them the right to call it toxic. I think in this culture, we start to dilute words too much, and we should be focusing more on the message rather than trying to just paint this imagery of toxicity or this imagery of impartiality or bias. But I digress, and I suppose that's a different video. I just wanted to show you this guy standing up in the House, whining that he's not being treated nicely. This guy who will do nothing but call you names, who Pierre Poilievre stands up and you can't hear him half the time for the NDP screaming from the back of the room. And of course now it's official, right? Jagmeet Singh's words, they don't care about. So they obviously don't care they don't say what they mean, the NDP. They just talk and they don't have there's no strength in their words. And that's going to probably, who would vote for a person who says something and then doesn't say, yeah, that's exactly what I said and I have to back up what I said? Who would vote for that kind of a person? I don't know. I don't know anybody, but I suppose maybe there's people out there who don't want to vote with their heads. All right, I want to encourage you all to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your socials. I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.